You can see my screen, right? So first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you again for this time for the Salesforce MVP series. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you and also for the privilege to welcome our speaker for today, Pat Mcclellan. So he is the Chief Lighting Officer at Proton 7 Group. Has been working on the app exchange on his app. He'll be able to tell us about it more. So Pat, take it from here.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen as soon as you quit. There we go.
Yep.
And let's see, where is it? There we go. All right. Well, hello. Thank you for being here. I'm delighted to be here. I am Pat Mcclellan, Chief Lightning Officer. When you're a one-person company, it always felt to me to be a little, I don't know, I felt uncomfortable calling myself the CEO or the president of a one-person company. So I figured Chief Lightning Officer, that goes over well in the Salesforce community, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. I am an Ohana-taught developer. I would say self-taught, except that nobody can really learn any of this all by themselves. And between Trailhead and all of the wonderful people in the community forums and Stack Exchange and all the different places, I consider myself Ohana-taught. I am a consultant and an App Exchange partner. I created an app called Proton Text and Proton Blaster. They're actually two components in the same app. They are Lightning components for doing SMS texting in Salesforce. I've got a few certifications, and most recently I got the UX designer. I'm also an application architect, which is sort of a combination of about six other certs. I was delighted and honored to join Joey as a Salesforce MVP this year. I was part of the Platform Champion program that Salesforce had. Trailblazing Partner, that's part of a App Exchange program. I was part of the mentorship program. I don't know if you know about the Trailblazing mentorship program. That's great for newbies trying to break into this community. So you can check with Salesforce on that. I was part of the pilot group of that. I've spoken at Dreamforce 2 times, and most recently in last June, I led 2 sessions at Trailhead DX, the big virtual event that Salesforce puts on in June. I am a volunteer coach for a program called Rad Women Code. And Irene, I saw you were interested in becoming a developer. You should definitely check out the site Rad Women Code. It's a wonderful program. It's free. You get top-notch coaching on that. And they've got a wonderful curriculum. Not just Irene, but anybody, I think it's women only, that want to join that. It's a wonderful program. I do on Trailhead love super badges. I've done 14 of the super badges, and but after some prodding from a few of my friends, I co-founded a group called Super Badge Sunday, where we tackle super badges. We sort of give tips and tricks to get through these super badges. I think they're a wonderful way to prove your capabilities on the platform. And then during the pandemic, I founded the Little Trailblazers Book Club. And this started out as me reading to my granddaughter over Zoom every day. And suddenly we were inviting other people in, and we ended up with about 15 kids. And I was reading to them daily while they were home from school and couldn't go to school. And it gave the parents about a 45-minute break every day. So that's what I've been up to in the Salesforce community. You can see I've earned a bunch of badges and a bunch of points, but to see all that, you might think that I've been doing this for a long time. But I'm going to let you in on a secret, and that is that I'm a career changer. I started learning Salesforce 4 years ago. I didn't know anything about Salesforce until 4 years ago. I had a 33-year career before that in media production. I was a video producer and a filmmaker. I did brand marketing and event strategy and creative. I worked at a marketing agency, and we put on major events, mostly for technology brands, including Salesforce. We did some work for Dreamforce, but also for Amazon Web Services and Intel. And I've worked with a lot of big brands putting on their biggest events. And that was my career for a long time. And in doing that, those big events I was working with them on brand strategy. How do they get their brand across in an event setting? How do they make their brand come to life for people in a live experience? So on the basis of all of that experience, basically 20 years consulting these big companies on their brand and how to bring those brands to life in a live environment, that led me to some key insights and an understanding of brand marketing. And so today we're going to talk about what is brand marketing and specifically what is your brand. Now you might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't even have a job in the Salesforce community yet, or maybe I've got my first job and I work for somebody, and why in the world would I need to worry about brand marketing? Well, a couple of things. First of all, no matter where you are, you need to think about how you are being perceived by others. That's brand marketing. What is your brand? How do people perceive you? And that might be your boss. That might be your coworkers. That might be the other people in this group. And how they perceive you is important because when they hear about an opening, they may give you a call if they think you're a good fit. And so brand marketing really, as a term, is used and studied with regard to some of the world's biggest brands, but it really boils down to how are you perceived? And that matters to everyone, no matter where you are. And it's important to start understanding that about yourself, taking responsibility for doing that, and understanding that that can propel your career very, very quickly. So let's take a look at some of the world's biggest brands. There's Amazon and Nike, Coca. I mean, these are the most well-known brands. So you got Proton Text. Oh, wait a second, Proton Text. All right, so Proton Text is my app on the App Exchange. And this is my opportunity to get a free commercial in here and to compare myself to these major brands. So please remember Proton Text, and you can find that on the App Exchange. There's Google, there's Apple. Oh, you might not have heard. Well, in the US, you might have heard if you saw the announcement today from Apple. Apple is coming out. They're going to release a car. They're finally doing a car. The details, they're not sharing any details yet, but I can hardly wait to hear about the Apple car. Now, I've got a confession for you. I just lied to you. There is no Apple car. But in the 15 seconds that I was talking about that, all of you had some impression in your head about what an Apple car would look like, what it would be named, what colors it would come in, right? It would be white and chrome, right? Or white and maybe a buff stainless or titanium, maybe. What features are in it? What price range would it be? Would it be a cheap car or a high-end car? How reliable would you expect it to be? Even though they've never made a car before, how reliable would you expect it to be? What celebrities would you expect to see driving it? And would you want one? Now, I will bet that if we wrote down what we all thought that Apple car was going to look like and be called and what features would be in it, there would be a pretty good consensus about it. We would all be thinking a lot of the same things about an Apple car. Why is that? Because Apple's never had a car. And the answer is to what is driving your assumption? Brand experience. We all think those things because of how we have experienced Apple in the past. So we're sort of transferring what we know about that brand onto a product that we all can imagine, right? A car. And so that's what we mean by brand experience, as opposed to a logo or something else. So let me talk a little bit about the elements of brand. Traditionally, if you were starting up your own company, right? You're starting up your own consulting gig and you're going to be doing Salesforce consulting, right? So the first things you got to think about is, what's the company name? I got to get a good company name and a good domain name, right? I got to find a logo. I have to get a logo, maybe a tagline. I don't know, maybe the tagline will help differentiate me from all those other consultants out there. I definitely am going to need a website, and I probably should get some business cards, right? So these are all of the things that everybody sort of thinks about first that they need to establish their brand. And in the end, it's not that important, because what you thought about that Apple car had little to do with the word Apple or their logo or think different, their tagline or their website or anything else. So these are just sort of the traditional vestiges of branding. And that's not really brand experience. What ends up being a lot more important is how that brand is experienced, right? What have been the years of your experience with Apple or with Amazon or with Google, right? You come back time and again and it's consistent and it surprises you and they're innovative. And so what are your values and how are they expressed in what you do? Now, Salesforce is ideal to look at with regard to brand experience. They know all about brand experience. Now, they have started doing some advertising. They were advertising all over the Olympics, and I'm glad to see that. But really, that's just kind of introducing people that don't know exactly what Salesforce is. Those of us that are in the business, we understand what Salesforce is, and it's not because they talk about their product that much. Really, they spend a lot more time talking about equality and diversity and inclusion and trust and all of these things, transformation and digital revolution and affecting social change. So these are Salesforce's values. And you can see over and over in their materials, at their events, in everything they do on Trailhead, you can see what their values are. So they've elevated their brand above talking about features and benefits of their product. And they're talking about their values and getting people aligned with that. So when you're thinking about your brand, think about what do you want people to say about your product. Maybe you make an app or working with you, right? Your services. How do you treat customers and your team? Because your customers will see how you treat your team. And by the way, your team aren't always going to be your team. I have this thing when I used to have a staff. I had a staff of about 40 people working for me. And my number one rule for management was don't be a dick, right? Don't treat these people like they're underlings, because I knew, and it proved to be the case, that many of the people that were working for me became my clients in the future, or my boss. And so, how you treat your team is almost as important, maybe more important than how you treat your customers. And then the flip side of that is, how will you allow yourself and your team to be treated by others? That's a big statement about your values. If you've got a client that you're making a lot of money off of and they're abusive to your team, how are you going to handle that? I had to face that. I had a multi-million-dollar client that proved that looked like they were going to grow, except that they had been so abusive to my team that nobody wanted to work on that project if it grew. And I had a face-to-face meeting with them, and I basically fired a client because they were treating us poorly. So this was all part of the values that we had and the brand that we had. Think about why people will refer you or your product to somebody they care about. Why would they put their reputation on the line to recommend you? What are those characteristics about what you are and you represent that make it worthy of someone's recommendation? So these are the things that really matter, much more important than getting that domain name that's perfect, or that tagline, or the company name that you dreamed about, okay? Now, I'm going to talk about how I developed my brand just as an example, because I developed my brand within the Salesforce Ohana, which is kind of the environment that most of you will be working in. So first of all, I'll say that my brand is always evolving, and yours should be too. Every brand it's not static. Things change, the world changes, your customers change, the services, your values. So think about this as a starting point. Now, I had a few challenges when I started 4 years ago. I had no experience. I had no customers, no product. Nobody in the Salesforce world knew me. I had no credibility, no income. I had no company, and I had no marketing budget. So, if you think I had a head start on this, maybe I did because I understood what brand was. I had that career background, but within this, I was starting from scratch in this Salesforce Ohana. But I did have a few assets. Now, you will look down this list and you'll say, oh, yeah, that's kind of me, or that is. So I knew that I could learn fast. So I was not afraid of getting on Trailhead and diving in. I got to Ranger status in about 5 weeks. That was my first 100 badges, which included about 4 super badges. I got 3 certifications in the first 5 months. So including Platform Developer 1, and I had never taken a computer programming class. So I can learn fast, and I like to teach and make presentations like this. I'm pretty good at technical writing and creating presentations because I'd done that for years in my previous career. I can be extroverted. Sometimes I like to be by myself and work by myself at home, but I can be extroverted, particularly in meeting situations. And then there are the free assets that we all have access to. There's Trailhead, there's YouTube, there's Google. There's a wonderful Trailblazer community online and these kind of user groups. There's the partner community resources. So you may not be familiar with the partner community if you're not a partner, if you're not a consulting partner or an App Exchange partner, but you can sign up to join that partner community even before you have a formal relationship or a contract as a partner with Salesforce. And there's some wonderful resources there, marketing resources. And finally, the fact that Salesforce and the Ohana are huge and growing incredibly fast. That fast growth means that there are new people all the time. And so by the second day that I was in Salesforce, in the Salesforce community, the second day I was on Trailhead taking classes, there was somebody that was behind me, somebody behind me that I could reach back and help. So that's a huge asset. And by the way, anybody that joins after you doesn't know how long you've been around. So let's talk about some traditional marketing channels. When people say marketing, the sort of traditional ways that people have marketed over the last century, really. Advertising, right? Advertising had its heyday in the Mad Men years in the 50s and the 60s. And then it grew and grew and grew. But it turns out that it's expensive. It's good for name recognition and a very simple message that says, remember me, right? So that's just getting your name out there. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. It tastes good, fresh. You can look like a model and drink Coca-Cola, whatever it is, right? It's a very simple message, and advertising works fine for that. But you get very low audience engagement because Pepsi can come along and say, Pepsi, and Pepsi, and Pepsi, and here, taste this. So advertising, it's expensive, not really ideal for us in this business. Public relations. So this is where you hire a PR firm, and that's more expensive, and that's narrow channel, so they can focus on a very narrow group and get out a specific message. But everybody knows when you're paying for that, and it lacks some credibility. There's viral media. Now, viral media has got high credibility because if it goes viral, it just happened on its own. You can't buy it. You can't plan it very well to go viral. It's a way of creating news, and it's a self-selected audience. That means anybody you're reaching found you. They found you. You didn't find them. And when they find you, there's a higher degree of credibility. They found you, and so they realized they weren't being pitched to. They found you. Now, the results are exponential because you don't spend much on it. You can stage event, and if it goes viral, then that's huge. But it really is hit or miss, and it's mostly miss. So let's talk about some newer marketing channels that are a little more predictable and very affordable. Social media, right? I'm talking Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of these kinds of social media. And you can kind of date yourself, or we can kind of pick your age based on which social media you're on. Right? I'm Twitter and I'm LinkedIn. My daughter my daughter's 19, and she saw me on there. She went on. She's got a Twitter account. She doesn't really go there, but one day she came on and she said, "Dad, do you know you've got 1,200 followers?" She was shocked. She didn't have any idea that I had any followers at all. So anyway. Social media is great. It's low cost, targeted reach, no barriers to entry. You can sign up for a Twitter account tonight and be tweeting tomorrow. Same thing with LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever. However, be very aware that to make an impact, you need to have an ongoing effort. And maintaining an ongoing effort on all the different channels is tough. So pick a couple, maybe. Pick one to be your primary one, and then maybe pick your second one to use to post pointers to the other one, right? So a lot of times I'll post an article on LinkedIn, and then I'll post a link on Twitter to drive people to that. So social media, very affordable, very good place to do it. Thought leadership and community engagement. So another word for this in the marketing world is content marketing. That means you are out there talking, you are giving presentations at user groups like this. This is low to no cost. It's just your time investment. It has a big impact on your brand. The existing infrastructure to reach a highly targeted audience of Salesforce users and developers and admins exists, and it's waiting there, and they're hungry for speakers. That's the Ohana, the Trailblazer community, and user groups just like this tonight. And finally, events marketing. So this is where I was working for the last 20 years. Events marketing, it can be very expensive. It's low to high cost, depending on the event scale and the desired engagement. So by this, I mean, I cannot afford to be a sponsor at Dreamforce. It's just completely out of my budget. However, I can afford to be a sponsor for Midwest Dreamin' or Tahoe Dreamin' or Force Academy in LA, right? So these are local Salesforce events put on by the local user groups or other leaders in those communities. And they're looking for sponsorship. And I like to sponsor those. And I also submit to speak at those engagements. Now, those are two separate things. The people who decide who speaks and the people who are selling the sponsorships, those are two separate processes. They don't want to let you pay to speak. But I almost always get to speak, and that's a pretty good encouragement to me. And I as long as I'm going to be there, I'll become a sponsor. Now, that sponsorship could be anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 or $8,000 or whatever, depending on whether I want to have giveaway swag or whatever it is, just have a booth. So there's a pretty good range there. These are great events to present at or to be a sponsor at if you've got an app on the App Exchange, or if you're a consultant and you're trying to differentiate yourself and meet more people. Even if you're not a sponsor, going to these events and having a presence and maybe speaking at these events is a great way to get people to know who you are and to leverage that into speaking engagements elsewhere. So event marketing, and this is why it's ideal for tech companies like Salesforce. Event marketing, when they get you at Dreamforce for 3 days, in live and in person, that is a great time to try to communicate a much more complicated and extensive message, as opposed to just knowing who the name is, right? It's a complicated message about their product roadmap and the investments they're making in Slack or the acquisitions that they're making. So a lot more complicated message you can get away with because you've got people there, they're sort of a captive audience for a period of time. Also great for a relationship sell. That means that you associate with and talk with and go have lunch with and build a relationship with the people at the company. And that's the reason that you might want to attend these events. When you think about going to Dreamforce or another event, don't think about going just in terms of what people are going to tell you. Plan that event out. Think about who's going to be there. Who do I want to meet? Make a hit list of the people that you want to target and meet. And what is the message for each of those people? And what is the follow-up? If you get a meeting with somebody, what is your ask? What are you going to ask them to do? So events marketing, thought leadership, social media. The right side of this page, this is definitely ideal for the Salesforce Ohana, and this is where I focus my efforts. Now, personal brand first. This just means that what people know about you personally, your personal brand, carries over into the stuff that you're trying to sell them, the services, the product, whatever it is. Now, the Ohana is a meritocracy. That means that if you're good, you can rise to the top. There's high social mobility. You can get to the top very quickly, as long as you have merit. You have to be able to create value. And if you create value, people will assume you've been around for a long time because, gosh, you seem like you know more than them and they've been around for 10 years. And so you must have been here forever. So if you create enough value, not only do people notice you, but Salesforce starts noticing you and will recognize you and will ask you to be part of platform champions or be part of the mentorship program or be part of trailblazing partners or all of these different programs. And if you're really lucky and you work hard at it, they'll call you and say, hey, we'd like you to be an MVP. So that's how this works. So let's talk about how you build your personal brand first. This is the real how-to section here. And by the way, you don't have to take notes on this. I will share my slides after the fact. So you can sit back and think about this and just engage. And Joey, please interrupt me. I'm presenting here and I can't see the chat window. So if people have got questions along the way, Joey, I'll leave it to you to watch the chat and interrupt me.
Yeah,
so number one.
So far, none yet. Yeah.
All right, good. So number one, you want to have an active social media and community presence. That continually tells your evolving story. Now, keep in mind, your brand will evolve. Your story will change. What do I mean by my story? What story am I talking about? Well, I've told you my story tonight, and I think you can sort of figure out who I am because of that. Number two, you want to go to user group meetings, and don't stick just to one user group. You want to spread that brand around. So if let's say that you're based in New York City and you want to move to San Francisco, but you don't have a job out there. Well, guess what? Go to Trailblazer Community, sign up and start attending virtually all these events, all of these user group meetings in the Bay Area, Oakland and Marin County and all these other events. So you want to go to multiple user group meetings and go with enough regularity that people will recognize you. You got to go back again and again. I mentioned that I've been going to the Austin events. I've been going to the developer meetings and to the admin meetings and the Salesforce Saturday in Austin. And I'm telling you, people there think I live in Austin. You need to speak up and participate. You need to turn on your camera. You need to keep your microphone on. You need to ask questions. You want to be present. And that's especially important in a virtual world. You can also find newcomers and wallflowers. Now, what do I mean by that? At the very first Salesforce user group meeting that I went to, it was a developer meeting in San Francisco at Salesforce's headquarters. And I showed up there early and I helped set up chairs. And so I met the founder or the group leader there, Daniel Peter, who's also an MVP. I met him and talked with him. And he remembered me from that day because I was there to help him, lay out the pizza. And then by wallflowers and newcomers, I noticed as the meeting started that there were people that came in and sort of sat along the back wall. They just didn't really engage. They were the introverts. There are a lot of introverts in our business. And I could tell they were newcomers. And I just walked up to them and I said hi and introduced myself. They thought I was one of the leaders of the group. This was my very first meeting. So you can assume a presence about you. I told them it was my first meeting too, and they were shocked. You just have to be willing to engage with people. Now, how do you do that in a virtual meeting? Easy. You look for people that aren't talking. You send them a private chat meeting that says, hey, Irene, where are you based? Right? I'm sorry to pick on you, Irene. You're just a name that I remember. So you want to meet people, engage with people, and again, tell your story. You need to think about a lot about what is that story. This is your brand. You're building your brand identity around this story. Number three, you want to write some blog posts about whatever you've just learned or whatever you're working on, and you can turn that into a presentation. I started making presentations. I made my first presentation at a Salesforce user group about 4 months after I started, just to share what I'd been learning about SMS and what it would take to integrate that into Salesforce. And that became my app. Again, you don't have to be an expert on everything. You just have to be an expert on what you're going to talk about for the next 20 minutes. And by expert, that means 10% more than most people know, and maybe some resources where they can go and learn with you. Okay. Now, maybe you're not a writer. Maybe it's not blog posts. It doesn't take much. You can start on social media sharing interesting blogs that you have found and add a comment, add some value to that. Say, this really helped me break through. The key understanding that I gained from this article was this differentiation, why a flow is now just as good as a process, or whatever it is, okay? Number 4, once you have got something to talk about, you need to find events where you can present it, and you want to do it over and over again. This presentation that I'm doing tonight, I've given it before. Joey saw it before. I am already scheduled to give this in September. And as I put myself out there, I let people know branding, personal branding is one of the things that I can talk about. I may very well submit this one to present at Dreamforce. Although I don't think they're doing a lot of external. It may be Dreamforce next year by the time we're back in person. But anyway, my point is, think of these presentations. And by the way, if you create a blog post, that can easily become a presentation with not that much work. Create these presentations and they become content that you can use over and over. It becomes a intellectual asset that you've got. Okay. And don't forget, even if you're presenting on Invocable Apex, or you're presenting on personal branding or something that seems not really about your business, right? My business is selling an app on App Exchange. That's all right. You can still include some part of your story. That matters. Number 5, volunteer. Volunteer at Salesforce and Dreaming events. And by Dreaming events, I mean any of these sort of local organized events. Joey's got one coming up, I think. And with your local user groups, start a new group. If you're in a location that doesn't have a user group that you can volunteer at, that's an opportunity. You can start a new group in the Ohana. Now, it doesn't have to be an admin user group or developer user group. It could be anything. A Salesforce Saturday, a Women in Technology, Super Badge Sunday. That's one that I started with my co-founder. The Little Trailblazer Salesforce Saturday. That's one for kids on Saturdays. These are kids of people that work in Salesforce learning to do their learning to work on Trailhead. Little Trailblazers Book Club, I mentioned that I started. Certification study groups, there's no limit. You can create any kind of group you want, and there's always a way to get that word out. And you'll have somebody, I mean, you can just post on one of the community groups and say, hey, I'm going to study for the advanced admin. Anybody want to join me and we can have a study group? And suddenly you're leading a study group. Number 6, earn Trailhead badges, super badges, and Salesforce certifications. Now, these are important partly because, well, they're important for a lot of reasons. Number 1 is it's important in this day and age that you assume the attitude that you are always going to be learning. You are never not going to be learning, okay? So that's important for your own, building your own personal worth and improving yourself constantly, making your brand more valuable. Number 2, it's important because it gives you something to talk about, and talk about it when you pass and talk about it when you fail them. It's okay if you fail them, and talk about the super badges when you're frustrated with them, because guess what? So are a million other people. Nobody expects you to know everything. It's more important to be participative, to gain empathy, gain a group of followers that are cheering you on. And then after the 3rd time that you take the exam and you finally pass it, you're going to have dozens of people that are cheering you on and congratulating you. This is all more content for your story, more social engagement. Number 7, you want to be outspoken in support of Salesforce. Now, I'm not asking you to lie about Salesforce, and there are plenty of people out there that tell the truth. And when there are things I complain about Salesforce all the time. But on the other hand, it's a wonderful platform to work on. I love the resources that they've provided me. They've given me basically a livelihood, and I'm happy to talk about that. And I'm happy to help others get involved in the Ohana. The more you can speak out about Salesforce, they will notice that and create channels to elevate you and that advocacy, right? They knew that I was talking about Salesforce, and so they invited me to be in videos that were featured at Dreamforce and on their website. They'll pull in. They invited me into a focus group to hear the first draft of all the presentations for Dreamforce 2 years ago, and then took feedback on that. And so these are just ways of building a relationship with Salesforce and let them help you market yourself. They really know a lot about marketing and can do you a lot of good. So that's how I built my personal brand first. Now, whatever you do, by the way, use social media, make sure that people see that you're doing it and associate that with your company and your product, okay? So how does that help you in your business as a consultant or in your business selling an app? That's the power of transference. It's also called the halo effect. That makes a lot of sense. And it's as simple as this. If people respect your personal brand, they'll extend and transfer that brand perception to your product or your service, just like we did with that Apple car. Now, your product or service, and by the way, I made these slides much more verbose than I usually do because I thought you might want to refer to them later, and I wanted them to stand alone. So your product or service expertise becomes the content that you can use to perpetuate your brand, right? So if I'm going to engage repeatedly in a community and talk about my brand, I need content. I can't say the same thing over and over and over again, right? So you need content for that. And so whatever you're working on, that becomes content. And you don't have to talk about me. You talk about, I'm working on this very cool product with my fantastic teammates, and I'm collaborating with Joey on this, and this client is a fantastic client, right? Talking about others elevates you. Now, I've made many presentations about SMS in Salesforce. SMS texting is what I'm talking about. That's creating, in those presentations, I define what quality is in a texting app. And then I demonstrate that with my app. So it's more than a product demo. It's really the way it's perceived by others is a demo by an expert in this field who's teaching me about something, not so much selling to me, right? So I'll show them features of my product and then tell them how I use record ID or whatever to make it really smart and to know which page it's on and all of that kind of information. Now, what are the traits of your personal brand? This is the workbook section. So this is my challenge to you. I want you to think about what are the traits of your personal brand. Doesn't have to be established yet, but 5 years from now, what do you want to be known for? What are those? Which of those attributes are going to cast a halo or a shadow on your company, right? So this can work in a negative way too. So think about that. Now, I'll share with you some of mine. These are things that I work to cultivate. I want to be seen as having expertise, of being dependable and honest, qualified, certified. That's where those certifications come in. Actively engaged in the community and with Salesforce, up to date on latest technology. How many of you working in a Salesforce job just are inundated? You can't keep up. Every 3 times a year, they're putting out a new version with new features and you just can't keep up. And so you turn to look to those people who seem to be up to date on the latest technology. Experienced, inclusive values, helpful, empathetic. So these are the things that I want to do. These are what I'm trying to cultivate. You think about your list and you can write them out as statements, as words, whatever it takes, bullet point list. You define your own and feel free to steal some of mine. These are certainly not unique to me. Now, once you've defined that, you need to think about consistently living up to that personal and company brand, okay? Because doing so, that is integrity and authenticity. And by the way, people smell lack of that immediately. You can tell when somebody's a poser. You can tell when somebody's flexing. So you can aspire to these things and work hard to do them over and over, but you got to remember you're going to, there we go. You're going to have to live up to them. And that means consistently every day. You don't slip on that, because If you lose trust, it takes forever to rebuild it. Okay. Inconsistency and misalignment with these attributes weakens your brand and your credibility. I think back a few years ago, about 15 years ago, Microsoft was one of my clients. And Microsoft was going through a period where they were spending so much money on advertising. They were spending ungodly amounts on advertising, all about your passion. Let's see, I forget what the slogan was, but our mission, your passion, right? Your passion, our mission. It was all about enabling people. And they had these beautiful commercials of little kids drawing rocket ships. And then suddenly you would see them, time lapse, and you would see them training to be an astronaut or whatever, right? Living up to their potential. And really Microsoft was trying to pair themselves with being all about you, our customers. And meanwhile, one of the people that was working on Bing, which was their search engine, left to go work at Google. And he was a very senior executive and had all the algorithms. And Steve Ballmer, who was CEO at that time, when he heard about it in a very public it was a meeting in his office, but there were several people there. He literally threw a chair across the room, hit the wall, broke the chair, and launched into a 2 or 3 minute expletive-laced tirade about gonna kill him, gonna sue them, gonna make them wish they were never. And that came out. Of course, they did sue. They sued him to keep from moving to Google. But in the process, he had a deposition, and that deposition became public, a legal deposition where you had multiple witnesses testifying to this. And that was much bigger news and completely broke down what Microsoft was saying about itself. It was inconsistent and misaligned with their brand of being all about enabling people, and instead made them come off as just tyrants. So brand consistency is important. So let me check with you. I'm going to test a hypothesis here. Okay. Have I followed my own advice today? These are rhetorical questions, but let me ask them. Do you have a sense of my story? Do you know what my trailblazer journey has been? Could you tell people who spoke to you tonight? What are the brand attributes you've perceived from today's experience with me? Without ever seeing my application, Proton Text, would you be likely to mention or recommend it to somebody if you knew they were looking for an SMS app in Salesforce? If you know that I'm available for consulting, would you consider hiring me to write an app for you, even though you have not seen any of my code? And did I leverage this unpaid opportunity to promote my brand? Will I follow up with it with post-promotion? And will I look for other opportunities to repeat this presentation and to get additional return on this marketing investment? And here's a tweet that I sent out today. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's not enough to do it. You want to talk about doing it, and you want to talk about having done it. That's why I asked Joey to take a screenshot of all of you so we can post about this. That's all marketing. And it happens all the time, every day, and you need to be doing some of it. So, questions. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah. It's just posted in the chat. This is exactly why we have Pat here on the call today, right?
All right. We got a bunch of people. I'm admitting a bunch of people that must have dropped out, or we got more people joining.
Yep.
We got more people than we had before. Wonderful. All right. So questions.
Yep. Feel free to post your questions. So I have two from Sal. So how did you find user groups to present that? And also, what helped you prepare for the PD1 exam?
Okay.
PD1's platform developer one.
Okay. PD1 exam, I will tell you, I did Trailhead modules. I watched videos by, I'm sorry, David Liu. You can find him at, what is it, SF, is it
SFDC 99.
SFDC99.com. Great resource for coders. And I use Focus on Force. Those are very affordable. I think they're $20 or something. Affordable study guides and practice test exams. So I've used those for all of the certs that I've taken where they had them. They don't have them for some of the architect exams, but great resource. Now, on that, schedule it before you're ready. Okay, so schedule it for the end of next month, and that becomes a pretty good stick to keep you studying, right? You can always at no cost reschedule if something comes up, if you get sick, whatever, but go ahead and schedule it. Now, when you fail, because I've failed cert exams. I think, Joey, have you failed? Or you?
Once, yeah.
All right.
It's actually on Dreamforce, yes.
That's right.
I was
Now,
rushing.
right. When you don't pass the exam, that is not failure. That is data gathering. Okay. Because now you know a lot more what to expect. You know the sections that you need to study more. Don't wait too long. If you fail it, don't get disappointed and then wait 6 months to do it again, or you're going to have to learn that material all over again. If you don't pass, reschedule for 2 weeks later. I'm talking 2 weeks, and get busy studying. All right, so that's the cert. The other question, how do I find groups to speak to? Go on the Trailblazer community, and there's a link on there for finding groups in your area, in your city. Well, lie about what city you're in, okay? Sign up for the Austin groups. I recommend the Austin groups to everybody. Admins, developers, they've got really good guests. They've got a very active community there, great leaders. Also, the Minneapolis group is great. Also, any of the Bay Area groups, the developer group in San Francisco, the Salesforce Saturday in Oakland, the admin group in Oakland, those are great groups. So pick a city, it'll list the groups, and then you can subscribe. And basically you'll get emails about all of them. Attend a meeting or two. And then you can start sending notes to the leaders and saying, hey, I'd love to present at this group, and talk about what you'd like to present. You need to write up, this is the title of it. This is a 2-sentence description of it. This is a paragraph that you can use to describe it in your materials when you promote this. Like, so today, Joey was able to draw a big audience, including from people outside of his home territory, because I sent him a big description of what I'd be talking about tonight. And he went and he posted that on LinkedIn and other places, and that drew a group. Okay. So you need to write the title, a short blurb about what it is, a longer blurb that you can use in promotion. Have your bio ready. You need to write your bio, and just use the ones that are on the Trailblazer profile. You should have a profile written up there. It's like 4 sentences. It doesn't take much. Talks about your certifications, what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. So you got to have a profile, and you need a headshot. So those are the things that you need for a leader to say, wow, they're really prepared. Yes, we need you. Are you available in September? Great. Oh, and also I have a good idea. Is this a 20-minute presentation, or is it a 40-minute presentation with questions or whatever? Do not go over a 40-minute presentation before you start taking questions. I've been on some meetings this year that were like an hour and 15 minutes. No, wrong format for that.
Yeah, really appreciate the tips there. So one of the things that really stuck out or struck with me is, what do you really want to be known for, right? Because that's one of the things that will really guide you in terms of what you should be doing, right? Because you have to decide, hey, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, you want to be at a certain point, and then you basically backtrack from there. What do you have to do in order to get there, right? Because many people just tend to ride the waves, and especially with the pandemic, quite a number of people did feel helpless, right? And there's all of those emotions. But at the same time, whenever people like you speak, and things like those are really inspirational to quite a lot of people, right? So yeah, thank you for this one too. So we have another questions from the group. So it's Shitao, and the tips on projecting your brand in presentations.
Okay, I'm sorry. What is the
Yep.
question?
Do you have any tips on projecting your brand in presentations?
Yes, a few things. Now, everybody here that I'm seeing is doing pretty well, but I was on a call with people at Salesforce preparing for Trailhead DX, and the people who were trying to facilitate all of the speakers for that, there were two of them, and they were sitting like this. Okay, you see my camera? I'm way too short. I am not in command of this presentation, right? I'm sitting down here. Tilt your monitor down, right? So it's a simple matter of having a presence. Sit close enough so that it's very easy. Look at a newscaster on television, right? You never see a newscaster framed like this. No, your eyes should be, if you divide the screen in three pieces horizontally, so picture two lines like here and here, your eyes should be aligned with the top of those lines, top of those two lines in the middle, okay? That's where your face sits. Get good lighting. Now I have to apologize. It's nighttime here and I am almost never doing presentations at night. I have a little light over here on the side that picks me up a little bit, and I've got my lights bright here. But in general, you want to get your lighting where you don't have something super bright behind you, like a window, and unless you're balanced out with enough front light. So I'm looking at Joey. He's got a window in the background, but he's got enough light on the front of him that he's not silhouetted, okay? Think about getting, if you've got only a laptop, I'm looking right now at Akib. So Akib looks like you're using the camera on your laptop. If you're going to do that, you need to prop it up. You need to get a stand for it or prop it up on a stack of books or something to get it at eye level so it's not looking up at you and we can see the ceiling behind you. Okay, so think about for your presentation skills, how you look matters, right? Dress for your audience. I mean, I know this audience is pretty casual, so my t-shirt's going to do it. But if you're in a job interview, put on a jacket, put on some makeup if you want. Whatever it takes to make you feel like you are there in person, however you would dress for it in person, okay? Get the camera shot framed. I use a USB microphone right here, okay? Instead of relying on the dinky little speaker in my laptop or on my display. And whatever you do, do not rely on the microphone from your earbuds. Bad idea, okay? This microphone cost $40 from Amazon. And you know, it definitely improves the sound quality significantly. So those are a couple of things you can do about your environment. Good lighting, good composition on the video image, good audio. Then practice. If you're not an experienced speaker, write it out and practice. Now, to practice, you need to do it out loud. You need to record it. You can go on, you can create a Zoom meeting with only you, and you can record it and make your presentation like it's the real thing, no stops and starts. If you mess up, you got to keep going because that's what's going to happen in a live situation. And then watch it back. And it's painful to watch yourself back. It really is. But then keep doing it. Practice and practice and practice. You're not going to know how long that presentation is unless you've practiced it. And you might write something that you think is going to be, you know, a 20-minute presentation. And when you stop, it's 45 minutes. And you think, oh, gosh, I got to do some editing. So practice out loud, practice, find a friend, present it to a friend and ask them to critique you, okay? It's important to do, and it's the only way you're ever going to get better.
Yep.
Oh, one last tip, and this is really easy, okay? When you sit down to figure out what am I presenting or what am I writing, write down three things. Three things. These are the three things I'm talking about. And that's all. I'm not talking about four things. People won't remember four things. Three things. That is a really good device for helping you scope a good presentation. All right. What are the three things I talked about tonight? Right. My three things were, what is branding and why does it matter to me? How did I do it? What are the channels that I chose to use and why? And the third point was, how can you do it? What are the things that you should be doing? Right. So those are your three things.
Yep. There's a request here to see if you can post the link to that mic from Amazon.
Yeah. I don't have a link for it. It's called FIFINE. Fifine. I don't know, but there are a bunch of them and they're all under $50. It's just a USB. Look for podcasting mic. Very easy to get. And it doesn't have to be this one. Any of them are better than the audio on either on your earbuds or on your laptop. Okay.
Yep.
Celine, did you have a question?
You're muted.
There you go. Yes, I actually posted it, but I was wondering, how do you get over imposter syndrome? I'm only starting out, so like you encourage us to post, to put content out there, but I'm just starting out with, I haven't even been certified. I'm just, I'm on to my last super badge for my admin superset. So it's kind of
that's a fine question. All right. So number one is I'm not proposing that you flex here. I'm not asking you to fake anything because people will sniff that inauthenticity. What you can do though is recognize the fact that wherever you are on your journey, you're ahead of somebody else. Okay. And in fact, you've got some insight that somebody that's been around for 5 or 10 years wouldn't have. They were experienced when they learned this and you were inexperienced. So you know what helped you, right? You know what helped you study for that first cert and what worked and what didn't work, right? And just share that, share your journey. And you will find that there are other people out there that's helpful to. And with regard to imposter syndrome, everybody has it. Don't worry about it. It's having imposter syndrome is being human. We all are human and it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, just to add to that, I feel like most of the imposter syndrome is coming from the fact that you feel like the people talking in audiences in large group are necessarily experts in what they do, right? It doesn't follow. Take note. They just know more about the topic and they're just presenting that specific topic to the audience. If you think about it that way, there's a lot more leverage, and at the same time, you're not telling everyone that you are an expert. You're just sharing what you know. So does that help?
Yeah, it helps a lot actually. Because that's my main barrier on like really personal branding. I come from a very different background. I come from a healthcare background, and I'm trying to pivot into Salesforce, and I'm only starting out my journey. So,
Can I tell you that? Right? You came from healthcare. I was a video producer. I've got a film degree, right? So what? Right. See, everybody comes from somewhere, and most of the best ones, a lot of the best ones I know didn't come from a CS background or an IT background. It's just don't let that spook you, and understand that everything that you've learned up to now, every work experience that you ever had, will benefit you. There are applicable skills. If you think about what makes someone successful in Salesforce, understanding code or understanding declarative features or how to do a flow or all of that, these are learned skills. Everybody can learn how to do that. Everybody can't learn how to conduct a meeting well. Everybody can't learn how to read a room and understand who's not picking up on something. Everybody can't necessarily learn how to be a good speaker, right? So all of these experiences that you've had in your past are applicable to being a good at understanding a project's requirements and communicating those back to the client or to your boss or whatever, and figuring out how long is that going to take us. So don't worry about not coming from a computer science background. You're going to be fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, that's it for the questions for now, though. And really appreciate all the time, Pat. I know we went over the time, but thank you for this privilege, and of course, welcoming you to the Philippines User Group whenever you're available, right? So yeah. So
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I will. I'll save a PDF of these slides and send those to Joey, and Joey, you can distribute.
Sure.
And it's been a pleasure being with you all. Thank you. Please, I'll encourage you again. Find me on LinkedIn and connect there. Follow me on Twitter. I'm Pat Mcclellan __C.
All right. I'll stop recording now.
Thank you, Pat.